How are
Oh,
you?
I love it,
Okay,
Ryan.
let me
Love what you did behind you. That's
love it.
great. You know something? I couldn't find a Psycho 2 t-shirt.
Oh, really?
Yeah, do they make them?
Oh, I'm sure they do. They got to make them.
Well, when I hang up with you, I'm gonna check because I've got all my other movies. They're pretty much all. I don't have Cloak and Dagger either now that I think of it. That's great what you did behind you. That's almost the one sheet to the movie, I think. Except I think I think Norman was facing us.
Facing it, yeah.
And
Um,
I gotta check to see if we can find if I can find a t-shirt.
yeah, I like your
Okay,
Friday night shirt.
thank you. It's cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get up and I have to decide which one of my movies I'm gonna put on, it's crazy.
Well,
Anyway,
hopefully,
how are
uh,
you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm excited. I didn't know you had a new book coming out until the other day. Sean Decker sent over uh the press report, and I was just like, I'm excited because next time you're at Monster Palooza, I'm gonna go to your booth and get you to sign a copy for me.
Oh, please, you could
Yeah,
also buy it on my
the
website,
website. Yeah,
terrortime.shop.
yeah.
And then I'll sign there. The 40th anniversary of Psycho 2 was this past summer, and there was a huge eruption of people talking about it and congratulations and praise and everything else. And I was absolutely amazed. And then another amazing thing happened. Mark Hartley, who does very good documentaries in Australia, came by with the 4K of Cloak and Dagger
Mhm.
out of Australia, and a little action figure. And he told me that Richard Franklin, who directed Psycho 2, and also directed Patrick and Road Games probably being the best suspense piece out of Australia, and that's 40 years ago too. That Richard, who passed in 2007 of cancer, had written his memoirs, and he sent his widow Jennifer Haddon sent me the memoirs, and the biggest chunk of it was about the creation of Psycho 2. And I read it, and it was like stepping back 40 years and reliving it moment to moment again, because that job was so important to me, and also at the same time such a gamble, because everybody thought that the critics would just savage both Richard and I for having the temerity to do it, to do a sequel to the horror classic. And and it's the whole story of it. And I read that, and I put together the book with his memoirs on Psycho 2, and then every paragraph where I had memories, and I certainly did,
Yeah.
I chimed in. And then I got Andrew London, who was the editor, to come in and correct both of us, because being an editor, of course, is anal
Yeah.
retentive, and remembered everything, including how we got that one sheet and how we got the tagline is 22 years later and Norman Bates is coming back, you know. And I thought it was a way of memorializing Richard Franklin in a way, and also because that's the movie that really made my career.
Yeah.
Before that, I'd done The Beast Within, my first movie, and it had gotten buried in the wreckage of the bankruptcy of United Artists because of Heaven's Gate. And Beast Within was the last movie that UA released before they went bankrupt, and it made money, but nobody knew about it. So I went, after spending years trying to get a movie made that I wrote, I spent a year unemployed. And then Richard Franklin asked me to write Psycho 2. And everybody was saying, don't do it,
Mhm.
it'll ruin your career. And I thought, what career? You
There you
know?
go. Yeah.
Yeah. And I went ahead and I wrote it working very, very closely with Richard, probably more closely than I've worked with any other director as a writer. And it was a huge learning experience for me too. It was like getting a graduate seminar in how Hitchcock created suspense in his films. And that was because of Richard. Richard was of that USC class in the late 60s that included George Lucas and the very nice guy who directed Grease. Name was almost there and then just went away.
Well, there's a
Anyway,
bunch of them. Yeah.
yeah, anyway, we watched every Hitchcock film, including The Silence, Richard and I. And this was the back in the day when you could, before just VHS was just coming in and cable was just coming in. This is 1982. And I think it was released in 83. But you couldn't see classic films or old films.
Yeah.
But Richard, because we were making it for Universal, Richard asked to see everything in Hitchcock's oeuvre. And so we watched one Hitchcock film after another, and it was like a fabulous graduate seminar for me in how Hitchcock made his films, especially his suspense films, which paid off with Child's Play, because that's a classic. But anyway, I I I relived all of that when I read his memoirs, and I decided to do a book on it because there was such a fan base now for Psycho 2. I mean, yeah, what happened is it was the biggest movie the Universal had in the year of 1982, I think, and it was a huge worldwide hit because Tony Perkins came back to play Norman Bates.
Yeah.
But we originally started out as being a cable movie, and I had to write a script that would get Tony Perkins to say, yes, I know how to act this, I want to do it, which means that I had to have an arc for his character, for Norman Bates, that was so compelling that he would know how to play it, and
Yeah.
also that he would say yes to playing Norman Bates again, which he had a very ambivalent relationship with, because before Psycho, Tony Perkins was a young male lead, and then he did Psycho, and I don't know, he didn't work that long on it, and he went back to New York in between, doing scenes, and it came out, and it was this enormous hit. It's the birth of the slasher film, and all of a sudden he was typecast for playing disturbed characters. So in a way, he hated Norman Bates.
Mhm.
But I was an actor for years before I started writing, and I was able to write a script that was so enticing. He said yes, and Universal, which wasn't going to release it as a feature film, did a press release that Tony Perkins was coming back to play Norman Bates for Psycho 2, and the entire world went crazy. And Universal said, we got a feature film here. They didn't give us any more money, mind you. We did that for next to nothing. We did that for a few dollars, under $5 million, if you can believe it. And I think worldwide it made like 90 million at the time. Of course, none of us ever saw a dime, but
Yeah.
well, no, Tony couldn't get any money out of him, and he threatened to sue him. And they said to Tony, if you do that, you'll never work in Hollywood again. And Tony said, yeah, until you need me the next time,
Yeah.
which was Psycho 3, which he
Yeah.
insisted on directing, because that was his revenge for them not, giving him his deferment and his profit for participation. Anyway,
And then
all this is in the book, Oh Mother, What Have You Done, which is the title of the Psycho 2 book. And I'd love to get the word out. And thank you for giving me this opportunity.
oh, thank you. I mean, this is amazing. I never thought I'd be talking to, Tom Holland. It's just amazing. And your memory is so sharp. I mean, it's just like I said, I just can't get over how much you remember, and you when I've watched interviews with you and met you at conventions, you've just been always sweet, always nice, always humble, and you're just full of knowledge. And I just love hearing it, even if it's the same thing. I just love hearing it just regurgitated. It's just amazing. So, and thank
It's
you for your contribution, to film, because like you said, Psycho 2 is just an amazing film. And some of your other films like Cloak and Dagger, I haven't watched that film in years, but I remember as a child, I just loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it.
everybody. It was not a success. It was not a success. There's a story there. It's a film we did. Richard and I did right after Psycho 2, but they changed regimes at Universal. And what happens then is the previous regime, the new regime dumps everything that the previous guys did. And that happened with Cloak and Dagger, which was the beginning of the PG family film, with for younger for tweeners, really. And they put it on cable, and it became hugely successful in the 90s and in the aughts. And anybody who saw that when they were like 13, 14, 15, 16, they loved the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't know if it's still on cable like it was, but I mean, I did a screening down at Tarantino's Beverly Theater, and I looked out at the audience, and everybody was like 34 or 5, which was all guys, almost all guys except for the girls they brought with them. But I mean, it was everybody who had seen the film at 15 years old. They all were there. So it was a definitive movie going experience, and I'm very proud of that film too. But it doesn't have the critical heft of Psycho 2, because that was very, very well reviewed. And to give you how ironic all this is, when Hitchcock released Psycho 1, the first one, I can't believe I'm calling it that, he was savaged by the critics for the violence. And it was and it was, if you've been my age, it must have been about 12 or 13 when I saw it. It was, I'd never seen horror like that, or anything so terrifying, or what seems so graphically violent at the time. I mean, it changed horror. Without Psycho, there's no Halloween, there's no Nightmare on Elm Street, there's none of them.
Nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think what you're describing is kind of what Jaws did for me. It kind of just changed just everything, the summer blockbuster. And I was going to ask you too, for Psycho 2, so Psycho 1, that was originally Paramount's movie, correct? Or was it
There's a
Universal?
story there. No, it was done at Universal, but
Okay.
it was just when Hitchcock was moving his deal from Paramount to
Oh,
Universal,
okay.
and Wasserman, Wasserman or Jules Stein, they were his agents, and they had taken over Universal, and they were moving his in-house deal over to Universal. And there's a story there, but I forget it. But anyway, by that time he was at Universal, and his first AD on that was Hilton Green, and Hilton Green was the line producer on Psycho 2. And Hilton Green was Alfred Hitchcock's first AD, all the way from that time on, all the way through the Hitchcock television series,
Yeah.
the movies that he made. I think he may have been the first AD on Family Plot. But I mean, and it was having him as the line producer on Psycho 2 that made it such an extraordinary experience for Richard and for me, because he protected us from the suits. He protected us from any interference from the Black Tower. Usually when you have a film, they'll put somebody on it from the executive side to mind that the filmmakers do whatever they do, don't spend too much money and stay on schedule. But with Hilton Green, we had a huge supporter that also the studio was comfortable with. So it was probably, I had a similar experience actually with Fright Night, with Jerry Barowitz, but Hilton Green really made Psycho 2 was in a way gave Richard and I the support to be able to
Yeah,
make it the film that we did. Yeah, yeah.
that is beautiful. And for Psycho 2, the house was relocated from the original Psycho.
Well, it was that's what they say,
Yeah,
but the house had been changed so much because it had appeared in a
other
dozen other
production.
movies.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it was tantamount to rebuilding the house. I mean, maybe they had the frame for the exterior, but believe me, the whole house, the exterior of the whole house was redone
yeah.
and rebuilt. And we put it up on that hill to get the motel down below.
Hmm.
And that was a moment in time when there was nothing there. They had just started building the amphitheater up there now. They hadn't gotten to the Universal Walk. I mean, it was all desert up there, but hilly. And we had that, and that was also about halfway through production. They started doing the tram ride, the electric carts through. But
Yeah,
that we were there at the beginning of that. In other words, when we did Psycho 2 in 1982, Universal was just beginning to put together the Universal theme park rides and
mhm,
all of that stuff. But we really predated it, and it was it was it was a fascinating experience. We did everything just like Hitchcock has shot the original Psycho. We did everything on the Universal lot, and we shot it very much like he shot Psycho with the television crew. We only moved off lot for one shot, which was in the cemetery when they exposed the coffin and Mother's body.
yeah.
Uh, but otherwise, everything was there, and we had Dean Cundy as the cinematographer,
Mhm.
and it was a wonderful cast. I mean, it was blessed. Psycho 2 was blessed, and I was like 37 years old, and I couldn't believe any of it. I walked around
Yeah.
starstruck, you know.
And were you there every day?
I was there. I was there through, yes, but no. I was there through the entire pre-production. And then when we got to post production, I went off and started writing Cloak and Dagger and worrying about that.
Yeah,
So, but there was Andrew London, the editor, he was there, and he took care of so much. But I was there for the casting process, which was heart stopping in a way. I mean, getting Robert Loggia, getting Vera Miles was wonderful, but the real, the real anxiety was in casting Mary, the girl that Norman takes into the Psycho house, and that's the Meg Tilly part. And we had a wide uh, uh, choice of actresses for that, many of whom were excellent, and we were looking for a certain innocence that would beguile Norman, who was desperately come out of the institution after 22 years, and he was sane. And he walks into the situation in the house, and somebody starts to drive him insane again, or to try to. So we needed a girl to play the distaff side, the emotional side. I don't want to say the love interest, but in a
yeah,
way, it was the caring. There was love and affection there, just it was not sexual. And Meg Tilly had an innocence, and she never really worked. I think she'd done one, maybe two low budget films, one of which was horror, but she wasn't experienced. And she was a Canadian. She wasn't even a movie fan, I don't think. She claimed that she'd never seen Psycho, I mean, which is unbelievable to me even
yeah,
then.
yeah,
How could you not? Psycho created the slasher film. Psycho was where the nature of horror changed. I don't even know if I knew that there was editing until I saw Psycho. I saw that shower scene.
yeah,
I sure as hell knew it didn't look like AIP. or Hammer Films, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, beautifully shot. And in this new book that you have that's out, that's available now, is it filled with photos? Did you find a lot of photos?
Yes, yes, it's photos, and it has a variety of one sheets, and it has a good chunk of the storyboards, which I think are fascinating. It shows Richard plotting out the plot beats, which was coming off of my 2x4 cards, because what I did was he came over to my house every morning and we worked together. And I told him what I was doing, and then I would put it on 2x5, 3x5 cards or whatever they were, and I pasted them on a cork board. And then he took and made a sheet so he could communicate with the actors, and he would know where he was in terms of where the actors were emotionally in the script. And all of that's in the book. But I think the real fascination is Richard's memoirs, and then every paragraph I come in with my memories, and then Andrew London, the editor, comes in to keep us both honest, and it reads like you're sitting in at a symposium of the three of us. It reads like you're there and it's live, and I've never seen that before. It's not it's far beyond a picture making of the movie book. It's much more
Yeah,
than that, because you see the anxiety, you see how worried we were. I terrified, actually, at having the that we were insane enough to take on this picture that everybody said would wreck our careers.
yeah, and it did the exact opposite and made some careers. So
Well, it did. That
yeah,
it changed my life. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to go on and write and direct Fright Night if it hadn't been for Psycho 2, you know.
and
I
who
mean,
knows, yeah, what else wouldn't have came from it, from your career without Psycho 2. It's amazing how just one thing can just alter,
well, it's
his
it's
life.
like a dream. It's like a dream come true,
Mhm.
And then of course you have then the other terror comes in. Once you have success making movies or in Hollywood, then you're terrified you're not going to be able to keep it going.
Yeah,
So I mean, there's never any
no
escape
lax
from the
moment.
anxiety. Yeah, from
Hmm.
the anxiety.
Yeah,
I suppose some people do it. Ridley Scott certainly has, but
yeah,
you know, but,
yeah.
but a lot of people understand what I'm talking about.
And you're still plugging away. You're still, making, creating art, in your books. Fright Night Origins is out. If you put the Child's Play screenplay together in a hardcover book, now you have this release. Do you have anything else in the pipeline as far as your books are concerned?
Yes, I'm writing the next Fright Night book, Fright Night Aftermath, because I own the literary and audio and dramatic rights to Fright Night, because it was an original,
Yeah.
the which I did without being paid by anybody. The the and I'm also writing other novels too. I'm trying to get out another book called Fright Night Resurrection. I I the Fright Night series, Fright Night Origins and Fright Night Aftermath, start up right after the movie ends. What happened when the police arrived? What did Peter Vincent say? What did Charlie and Amy say
Yeah.
about what
What
they've
did you
been
say? Yeah.
through? But then I thought to myself, there's a whole other story, which is what happens when Judy Brewster passes away and Norman and Charlie Brewster comes back 30 years later, and he comes back with his own teenage children, and they move into the house, and and Charlie Brewster begins to suspect maybe his mother's passing wasn't natural, and also his teenage kids begin to see things happening in the Jerry Dandridge house next door,
Mm,
and doing it with the second generation. So I think I may have two storylines going with Fright Night.
yeah. That is
I can't
awesome.
I can't stop. What are you going to do? I mean, what am I going to do? Go play golf? I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. And
Keep.
thank you very much for talking to me. That's the other
Oh, you're.
thing.
Oh, you're totally welcome. This is amazing. I mean, it's just I just grew up with all your films. I mean, every single one, and they've just left. I mean, I know so many people, especially with Psycho, they talk about the first one, but it's always number two. It's always number two. And I talked to somebody about it. Um, and it's just, and I think the writing, it's in the writing, because you always wonder what happened to Norman Bates, all these things. And then number two, you carry the story over, all that stuff you don't get to see. And so it
Well,
was just,
you,
it was
you,
great.
what happens is with Psycho 2 is you begin to feel sympathy for
Yes.
Norman Bates.
Mhm.
And
Everybody's
in
attacked.
some,
All the townspeople are just just attacking him. They're trying to instigate him, and he's perfectly fine.
well, it in some ways it's a tragedy too,
Yeah, yeah,
because you're hoping that Norman can make it, and in truth, everybody's being killed, but Norman isn't doing any of it.
of it. Yes.
And then at the very end, he's finally totally mad, and he kills his real mother.
Yeah,
And so it's a tragedy.
yeah.
That's how Psycho 2 plays. I don't know how the hell I did it, but I did it.
And how long did it take for you to write that? If you can,
2 months maybe altogether. But I mean, I had Richard Franklin showing up every day at my house in the morning asking for pages. So
yeah.
there wasn't any such thing as taking a day off.
No,
You know. And the only way I can figure out how to deal with anxiety about being productive is to be productive.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Counteract. Yeah. Um, and where can people find you? I know you're on Twitter. Are you on Instagram as well?
It beats the hell out of me because my son Josh Holland, who's a young man of probably your contemporary,
Yeah.
does so much of that for me. I'm on LinkedIn,
Okay.
because I'm on that because other people I've worked with,
Or on that.
are on that. That's how
Yeah.
I got into that. But I can't I can't keep up as it is,
There's a
Ryan.
lot. There's a lot. There is.
Well, I
But
mean, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I can get all the social media stuff from Josh. And
Yeah.
to make sure
But
and
I
link
mean,
it.
it's just becoming, it's
Yeah.
what I don't know. I'll tell you a story. I was being driven to do a film thing for AMC, I think, and it was the Jewish bear, the bear Jew, Eli Roth,
Yeah.
and yeah, and I'm sitting there talking to the driver, who was a guy about my age, and I said I just can't keep up with everything, and I was complaining, kvetching, and the driver looked at me in the rearview mirror, and he said, "You don't know how lucky you are that people still want to talk to you, because the older you get, the
Yeah.
more they think, the less they see you. You're disappearing in a way the older you get." So I'm blessed, Ryan. I mean, I never expected any of this. You got to remember, the Psycho 2 was the biggest movie that Universal had in 1983, and worldwide. And then it was like forgotten for
Mm.
for for 30, 35 years. It wasn't until a mad fan called Rob Galuzzo showed up in
Yeah.
2008 on my doorstep, Rob, on my doorstep, and said, "I want to do a documentary on Psycho 2. I want to do the Psycho legacy." And I said, "You do?" Because nobody had asked me about Psycho from 1983 or 4 till 2008.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I've realized how lucky I am, because I'm not isolated. Because being isolated is when you really get into trouble, you
Yeah.
know. And so I'm going to grow old with people wanting to talk to me, and I think it's wonderful.
It is. It definitely is. Are you going to be any conventions coming up? Anybody can.
Well, no, Tony Timpone just asked me to come to New York City for the New York City Horror Convention. He wanted to give me a Lifetime Achievement Award,
Hmm.
and I had to pass. I went to the Indianapolis Convention Horror Hound at the end of August, and that was great. But I had two people with me, including my son and Jack Ulrich, and it was terrific. And then I spent 4 or 5 days in Indiana because I have family there.
It's exhausting, talking to people, it just being just, up and about at these cons. I'm sure it's exhausting. It has to be.
Well, I'm trying to write at the same time,
Yeah.
and I've always been jealous because Stephen King says he's doing 2,000 words a day.
Wow.
I can pretty steadily do 800 to 1,200, and if I have a good day, I can get close to 2,000. But I
Yeah.
mean, that takes total concentration, and it takes quiet and a sane life. And what's going on, which I'm very thankful for, but which is sort of amazing, is more and more people want to interview me. And I think it's because I'm one of the last guys standing. I mean, it's me and John Carpenter, I think. I mean, we lost Toby
Yeah.
Hooper, who was a dear friend. We've lost George Romero. We've with Craven, Wes Craven. I
Mhm.
mean, so I think that's part of what's going on. So a great day for me is being able to write, 1,000, 1,500 words, spend an hour hiking with the dog. You
Mhm.
know, that's a really good day.
Yeah.
But I mean, but at the same time, I've got I've got four uh, 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 interviews set up coming up. One I'm appearing on at a theater on women in film, and then I'm doing an interesting podcast by a guy named Avi Klein called Celebrity Tournament. Then
Okay.
I'm going and I'm on Zoom on an all day Rutgers University that they've set it up, I guess, over several days of talking with horror writers, and I'm the only screenwriter included in that. So I mean, it's just all this stuff is sort of coming in, and I think it's all great and wonderful. But then I turn around and I haven't written anything all
And
day,
yeah.
you know.
Well,
So,
gotta
but
find that. It's
I'm
hard to find
thankful,
that
man.
balance. Yeah.
And thank you for getting the word out on Psycho 2.
Oh,
Mother, oh mother, what have you done? You can get it on, Amazon, you can get it on terrortime.shop, I mean, and I think it's terrific. So I think it's much more informative and much more in depth. And I have in depth than most things I see like that. And I had Richard Franklin and my personal photographs that we took during production, which had
See,
never
that is,
been seen before.
yeah, that's stuff that's just, craving. I can't wait. I can't
Yeah.
wait.
Well,
Well, Tom,
I think you'll be able to order it, and I think you'll be able to get it on Friday, but I'm not sure.
yeah, I'm definitely gonna get a copy. And Tom, thank you again so much. I'll
Thank
go
you,
ahead and I'll
Ryan.
wrap it up, and hopefully we can talk again soon about, when the next Fright Night novel's release. That'll be
Well,
fun.
I mean, ask Josh whenever,
I
yeah,
will.
because what I find is that there's no problem with people wanting to buy the material. It's just that they don't know about it.
Correct. Yeah, because I didn't know about the Psycho book until I got the press release. I mean, I probably would have found out as the outlets released it, but like you said, sometimes it's just difficult.
Well, it's just getting the word out, but I don't
Yeah.
know any. You don't have a major publisher behind you,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so
Yeah.
you have to do it yourself. And I guess I'm lucky. I'm so lucky because people want to talk to me. We're in an exploding genre.
Yeah.
I mean, literally horror ever since, oh, 2005 or 2010 has just been exploding. And I mean, now you can go to a convention, you can go to 2 conventions a month, maybe 3.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they don't, the
Definitely.
whole Fright Night cast is out almost every weekend. I'm
Yeah.
not with them, but they're out every weekend. So there's something going on. And It costs the least to produce and it's the most consistently remunerative.
Yeah. It's
And the
always,
fan base just continues to grow.
yeah.
You have to remember when I started, when I did The Beast Within and I did Psycho 2, horror was looked at as the redheaded stepchild of Hollywood.
Yeah.
They were the entry level jobs, but once you got in, you got out as quick as you could,
Yeah.
because otherwise it was looked down on. So all of this in terms of my generation is just amazing. And thank you, Ryan. And whenever you want to
Cool.
talk to me again, you have Josh's
Yeah.
information, just reach out and he'll set it up.
Definitely will. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you
Talk to you
very
soon.
much.